Okay, so have you ever felt like, your brain's just stuck, like it's constantly scrolling through some kind of invisible feed?
I think we all have.
Right. And it's exhausting. Well, we're diving into this YouTube video today. It's from a channel called Harmony, and they're talking about something they call fasting of the eyes.
Interesting.
Yeah, it really got me thinking. They're basically saying that just like, we might fast from food
Right.
for our physical health, we might need to fast from this constant stream of images, to kind of like regain control of our minds.
That's a fascinating idea.
Mm.
And it makes sense when you think about how much visual information we're bombarded with on a daily basis.
Exactly. And it's not even just about what we're seeing, right? It's the sheer volume of it all.
Absolutely. It's
Yeah.
overwhelming.
Think about how many ads you see in a day. Like just walking down the street, then add in like all the social media stuff. It's a lot.
It is. And the video even suggests that it's a deliberate attempt to, influence our thoughts, our behaviors even.
Makes you wonder, right? Like, are we really in control of what we're consuming online?
That's the question, isn't it?
Yeah,
Because it's so easy to get sucked in.
totally. And then you start to think, is this really what I want to be seeing? Or is it subtly shaping my desires, my decisions, this whole targeted advertising thing?
Right. And they make this point in the video that this kind of information overload, it can be like a form of enslavement.
Enslavement.
Yeah, because it's harder to resist than, even material things, right?
Mm.
Because it's constantly vying for our mental space.
It's true. It's so much easier to resist buying that, like, expensive thing you don't need. Oh, absolutely.
Than it is to resist just scrolling through, your phone for hours.
It's that constant pull, that instant gratification. And the thing is, you end up feeling empty, even after consuming all that information.
Yes, you feel like you should be satisfied, like you've had this huge meal,
Hmm.
but you're actually more hungry than when you started.
Exactly. And they make a really interesting distinction in the video between knowledge and wisdom.
Okay, so what's the difference? Because I feel like those words get used interchangeably sometimes.
They do. But the video argues that just because we're bombarded with information, right, doesn't mean we're actually becoming wiser.
It's like that saying, knowing a lot of facts doesn't make you intelligent.
Right. It's about what you do with that information, how you apply it.
Okay, so how does that relate back to this fasting of the eyes idea? Well, they use this really powerful image in the video. They say, people nowadays spend a significant portion of their time preoccupied with trivial matters, remaining adrift at sea, unwilling to dive beneath the surface in search of the pearls hidden in its depths.
Wow. Okay, I see where you're going with this. So it's about like cutting through the noise to find what truly matters.
Exactly. It's about being more intentional with what we allow into our minds.
So how do we do that? How do we actually fast from our eyes? Like what does that even look like in practice?
Well, it's not about throwing away your phone or anything.
Okay, good, because I'm pretty attached to mine.
It's about setting boundaries.
Boundaries, okay, I can get on board with
Yeah.
that, but like how do we determine what those boundaries should be? What's too much, what's enough? I feel like this is where it gets tricky.
It is tricky, and it's going to be different for everyone. But the video actually goes into some really specific examples and even potential dangers of, if you don't fast from your eyes, what can happen?
Okay, now you've got my attention. Dangers. Like what? Don't leave me hanging.
Okay, well, they talk about this idea of impure thoughts, and they actually define 3 levels of them.
3 levels. Okay, now you have to break this down for us because things are starting to feel a little too real.
Okay, so level 1, think of it as those thoughts that just kind of pop into your head, uninvited.
Okay, yeah, we've all been there. Like those random images or thoughts that you're like, where did that come from?
Exactly. And the video says those you're not really responsible for as long as you don't dwell on them.
Okay, so far so good. But it sounds like things can escalate from there, right? What happens if we, I don't know, linger a little too long on those uninvited guests in our minds?
Yeah, then it gets a little more complicated. And that's level 2.
Level 2, hit me.
This is when, you start maybe entertaining those thoughts a little, maybe even finding them, I don't know, enjoyable or intriguing.
Yikes.
The video really suggests that this is where we start, maybe veering off the path a little bit.
Okay, so level 3, the danger zone. What happens when we fully give in to those thoughts?
This is when it gets serious, according to the video. This is when you fully embrace those thoughts and, importantly, act on them.
Okay, so it's not just about the thoughts themselves, it's about like the actions they might lead to.
Right. And they argue that this constant influx of images, especially the ones designed to be, I don't know, kind of sensational or explicit, can make it really easy to reach that point.
Because you're constantly being like primed for it, even if you don't realize
Yeah.
it. It's like you see an image and it sparks a thought and then another and then
Exactly. And it can be a slippery slope. And it's not even just about like, explicitly inappropriate content, even just like the perfectly curated lives we see on social media, you know?
oh, absolutely, because it creates this constant need for more, right? Like
Yeah.
our brains get so used to like scrolling through this feed of like flawless images and, exciting moments that we lose the ability to like appreciate the
The
ordinary.
imperfect beauty of just everyday life.
Ex-
And they talk about this idea of like aesthetic practices, which is basically setting boundaries around your kind of media consumption.
So like having designated times for, scrolling or maybe choosing to fast from certain types of content, what would that look like?
Right. So maybe you like dedicate specific times to checking social media, just like you would schedule a meal.
Okay, yeah, I like that.
Or maybe you take a break from like social media altogether, for a day, a week, even longer.
Hmm.
The point is to be intentional about it and create space for other things.
It's interesting how something that was like designed to connect us, I'm talking about technology, can sometimes make us feel so disconnected.
Disconnected from ourselves.
Yes, and from the world around us. It's like in our quest to, experience everything virtually, I've kind of forgotten how to actually be present in our own lives.
And I think that's a really important point, this whole idea of fasting of the eyes. It's about reclaiming our attention,
Hmm.
rediscovering the beauty in the ordinary, like you were saying, and reconnecting with kind of that deeper part of ourselves that can get lost in all the noise.
It is a beautiful idea, but it makes you wonder, are we fighting a losing battle here? I mean, technology is not going anywhere, and if
Mm.
anything, it's only going to get more like immersive and harder to resist. How do we compete with that?
I know, it feels like a tidal wave sometimes,
Yeah.
right? Like, how do you even begin to, swim against that current?
And that's where I think this video offers a really empowering perspective, you
Mm.
know? It's not about like rejecting technology outright.
Okay, because that's not really an option for most of us.
Exactly. It's about shifting our relationship with it, like
Hmm.
reclaiming our own agency in all of this. So less about like throwing our phones into the ocean
Exactly.
and more about like learning how to navigate those digital waters more mindfully.
Yes. Like imagine yourself as the captain of your own attention. You get to decide where you focus, what you consume.
Ooh, I like that. Captain of my own attention.
Right. You have the power to chart your course.
Instead of letting like, some algorithm be the one steering the ship.
Right. And that actually reminds me of a point the video made about like information overload,
Mhm.
how it can lead to this sense of like being lost, directionless.
Even though, ironically, it feels like we're constantly consuming, constantly moving.
Exactly. It's like we're drowning in information, but starving for like real wisdom.
And connection, too, I think. Like
Yeah.
real, genuine connection with ourselves and, other people in the world around us.
Yes, absolutely. And that's why this whole idea of fasting of the eyes, it feels so like relevant, even though it's coming from these like ancient practices, right? It's
Yeah.
like we need those moments of stillness and silence, those opportunities for reflection and introspection to make sense of it all.
To process it all. Because it's a lot.
It is a lot,
Yeah.
and it's not going to slow down anytime soon.
Right. So what do we do?
Well, the video suggests starting small, just like create some space.
Okay, start small. What does that actually look like, in practical sense?
So maybe choose one day a week or even just a few hours each day to like completely disconnect from your devices
Okay, I can see that.
and use that time to engage in things that, nourish your mind and your soul.
So, like, read a book, go for a walk, actually talk to another human being face to face, all those revolutionary things we used to do.
Exactly. It's about rediscovering those simple joys, that get lost in the chaos.
It's about remembering what it feels like to just be, to like notice the beauty in the ordinary without feeling the need to document it or share it or compare it to everyone else's highlight reel.
Exactly. Just be present in your own life.
So to wrap things up, I think what we're really talking about here is the importance of finding that balance, right?
Yes.
Between, engaging with the digital world, which, let's face it, is a huge part of our lives now, and, nurturing our own inner world.
Finding those moments of quiet, of stillness, where we can actually hear our own thoughts, our own intuition.
Because that's where the real magic happens, right?
Exactly. When we create space for those pearls of wisdom to surface.
I love that. So to our listeners, we'd love to hear from you. What are some of the ways you create those spaces for stillness and reflection in your own lives? How do you fast from your eyes in this age of information overload? Let us know. And until next time, happy disconnecting.